already starting to get orders in for next year. So if you know what you like, please get in touch for a quote. And if you don't know what you'd like, get in touch and I can try to help you figure it out with some advice, specimens, etc. We can meet up on Zoom and we can look at a lot of different course books and also go through the digital components if you need to. So today we're going to be looking at what was, when it first came out, my favorite thing in the moment. I've been doing this job for about 15 years now, and every once in a while things come up that I really enjoy. This is not new per se, but it is obviously recent. Can anybody tell me why this wouldn't be a new book in the discussion box? Because the exams were changed in 2018, so pretty much any publishing that came out for these new exams came out at or about or just after 2018 to keep up with the changes that occurred during the test or for the test itself. Why I'm talking about it is because I think it is a lesser known book, perhaps for obvious reasons. I think it does a really good job, for a better job than the other ones, of combining language practice and exam practice and making it lively and teachable. I speak to teachers all the time who are looking, who don't notice it necessarily that there are other options. And I think my job as a distributor is to let you know that there are other books out there, and that if you can avoid teaching with a book that you don't like, I suppose it's best to try to, like I said, I think it's my job to show you what there is out there. So this is an exam preparation course book, so starters, movers, and flyers, as opposed to a general English course book, such as some of you may be using Family and Friends, Kids Box, or perhaps wanting to move on to my new current favorite thing, which is Bright Ideas. Those are general English course books, so they have the young learners exam syllabus built into it, but also include extra extra exam practice to it. The idea being that if we're using something like a get ready for or a fun for or story fun, etc., we already assume that the pupils have pretty much the language level needed, and this is really to consolidate and use that language in an exam preparation context. And like I said, I think this get ready for starters, movers, and flyers does a good job of combining all of those things. So based on the people that were signed up, it was a pretty even mixture of people who were preparing the young learners exams and people who were not. But if you could just very quickly put in so I know who I'm speaking to today, put in the discussion box 1, 2, or 3 what your situation is, if you are already preparing, if you have not yet started preparing but are thinking about it, or if you're just curious. Please make sure you write in your discussion box, change it to write to all panelists and all participants, please, so everybody can see your answers. At the bottom of your box, you can see, thank you, perfect. Oh. Great. Yeah, so it'll be a mix. So I'll keep that in mind when I'm talking about it today. You're preparing students for the exams 2 and 3, 2 and 3. Okay. So we'll go quickly over the changes that occurred for the young learners exams for 2018. Obviously, if you didn't know about them before, it's not that important, but I do think it's important to go over just a few, because it shows that the changes in the exam reflect the changes in the thinking around teaching English to young learners. So I think that's important. Some strategies and some practical examples so that we can make it fun and engaging. So the first change that took place is what we call them. So Cambridge English tests has now become, does anybody know? Cambridge English tests has now become Cambridge English Qualifications. Yes, young learners, Cambridge English Qualifications. Now, to be honest with you, I will probably revert back to tests when doing this webinar because it is a lot easier and rolls off the tongue a lot nicer than Cambridge English Qualifications, which is a bit of a mouthful. But any ideas why they would change the wording from tests to qualifications? Yeah, it's more positive. A lot of the changes with the new exams is more around sort of bienveillance, more positive, more encouraging, more yes, more achievement based as well. Tests, for me anyway, is an anxiety inducing word. I was always good at school, not really great at tests. So I know that would add a lot of added pressure to me. And so in this idea of bienveillance, a lot of the wording has changed. We're not talking about tests, we're talking about qualifications. There's less emphasis on marks or grades or accuracy. It's really just to make it a little bit more encouraging and nice, warm and fluffier for the kids. The other change about the names is that we now call them pre-A1 starters, A1 movers, and A2 flyers. Now, this obviously more clearly indicates what level we're talking about, and also then more clearly indicates the objectives. Obviously, they're international; these levels are internationally recognized, so we know what pre-A1 means. We know what A1 means, etc. So we know what we're shooting for. I have a lot of people who come to me or that I talk to at the beginning of their Cambridge exam journey, and they're very excited, as well as they should be. I get quite passionate about it myself, but I do like to remind people that pre-A1 may be what appears to be a very low level. Obviously, in comparison to the rest, it is still a language level to attain, and we do need to work towards it. So just to give you an example, in France, what happens most often is that they take the pre-A1 starters in CM2. Now that is starting to change, which means that for Cambridge and for other publishers, they've done a few years of English already, perhaps using Kids Box or Family and Friends. And those are used over 2 levels over 2 years each, so which is basically about 4 years. So there is, so they've already gone through a couple of years of more intensive English study than they would have perhaps in other circumstances. So we need to keep that in mind. And like I said, if we're using something like an exam preparation course book, like Get Ready For, Fun For, any of the other ones, we do sort of assume that they've got at least very close to the level of language needed, and that we're going to try to put that language into context with the exam to prepare them for what's going to happen to them the day they actually go and sit the exam. Okay. Again, most of the changes, it's about being more bienveillant. It's going to be more realistic, closer to their lives, things that they can more easily relate to. The order of the tasks within each part has changed, so now it goes from more I suppose the least complicated to the most complicated. So sort of a scaffolding approach, step-by-step approach to increasingly get more difficult and more complex. What else? They take words out, they put different words in. Basically, this is all according to corpus, and so the language that is most frequently used now. And like I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Just think it's important because it shows current thinking about teaching English to young learners, what to teach, when to teach, and if you're using a course book, how to teach it. Voilà. So why do all of this? Why should we prepare our children, our pupils, to take the young learners exams? If you're thinking about doing it, why are you thinking about doing it? What sort of benefits do you think you can get? Or if you're already doing, what benefits do you see from preparing your pupils for the young learners exams? I'll start. It makes learning effective and rewarding. What do you think? Anybody have any ideas? Why would we want to prepare? Why are you thinking about preparing? Yeah, build up their confidence. It gives clear objectives for the learner. And I think it also gives clear objectives to the teacher as well. It has a nice positive backwash effect on your teaching. It tells you what to teach, when to teach, and you can benchmark. You can see how well your pupils are progressing based on your objectives. The course starts from the child's world and develops outward from there. Yes. Build their confidence. And hopefully makes learning fun and enjoyable. So at a very basic level, not counting English, plenty of variety, yes. There are 3 things that children aged 7 to 12 learn at school. What is number 1? Read. Number 2? And number 3? Right, yes, number 2 is right. Number 3 is count. Exactly. This is the basics, right? There's another thing that is happening at this time as well, which is, somebody can tell me, number 4. Self-confidence. Yeah, this is a key period in the child's life where he or she is learning self-confidence, and preparing them to take and having them take the young learners exams is going to set them up for what might be their first or one of their first academic successes, where they're actually going to have an objective, works towards it, and succeed. Because as you know, the young learners exams, you can't fail it. You can have more shields, but you can't exactly fail it. So it's a great way to give them self-confidence, getting them working towards something, and then obviously achieving it. But to get the self-confidence afterwards, we need to obviously give them the self-confidence while they're preparing. Because like I said, there's the language level involved with the taking one of the exams, but also the self-confidence and the maturity to be able to sit in a room with somebody they don't know and take an English test. So to help them develop self-confidence while preparing, we need to make sure they have knowledge of the exam task types, obviously routine in using these appropriate strategies to sort of make it become automatic, fun learning and enjoyable preparation, which obviously goes for children, but I think it's good for adults as well. Everybody likes to have a bit of fun. Supportive teacher strategies, like we mentioned. So the words around it, not using tests, not using grade, etc. And obviously, not that I think this is a problem with any of you, but a non-threatening environment. So today, from the Get Ready for Movers, we're going to look at two parts from it. Like I said, the Get Ready for Starters, Movers, and Flyers do a great job of combining the student's book, the language practice and the exam practice in the student's book, because at the end of each unit, there are sample practice exams. So you work on the language in the unit and then use it directly, immediately in a practice test. And the practice test language does not go beyond what was used in the unit. So it's just a lot of repetition and a lot of practice. So we'll be looking at reading and writing part 6 and listening part 3. This is one of the new exercises from the 2018 exams. Children complete sentences, answer questions, and write complete sentences about a picture. So this should look familiar to you. At the top here, can write short, simple, isolated phrases about everyday topics and concrete situations. That is the assessment criteria. So what do you notice about the assessment criteria? What is not mentioned in the assessment criteria for this part? Anybody? Yeah, spelling. Sorry, I've got to bring it up on both. Yeah, it doesn't mention anything about accuracy. It doesn't mention anything about grammar or language. The assessment criteria is, like I said, doesn't say anything about language or grammar. It's more focused on communicative ability for this part of the test. Yes, I remember, Jeannie, you do want to talk about spelling. We'll get to that. So here we complete sentences, answer questions, and write 2 sentences about the picture. Again, scaffolding, step by step, going from very controlled practice to freer writing. So one activity, or several activities actually we're going to look at, we can do with this practice test is to put your pupils into groups of 3 or 4, depending obviously on the number of pupils you have in your class. Give one of them the role of secretary and have them write down the numbers 1 to 4. And then you would bring up your classroom presentation tool, which I will show you at the end, and focus on the image. So what I'd like you to do is I'm going to show you the image. I want you to try to remember as many details as possible from this image. So for about 10 seconds. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop. Okay. I'm going to ask you some questions. I want to see if you can remember the details. So, sorry, like I said, I'm doing this by myself, so I have to go back and forth between 2 computers. Where is the cat? In the tree. That's right. Please remember to write to all panelists and all participants. Thank you. In the tree. When we're taking exams, do we say tree or do we encourage them to write full sentences? What's the girl in the purple coat doing? Number 2. This one's a little bit more complicated. What is the girl in the purple coat doing? She is fishing. Yes, thank you. How many houses are there? 3 houses. Yep. And what color is the biggest dog? Ah, very nice. Black. Exactly. Okay. So we're getting them to work together. They're in groups. They're hearing the sentence. So it's they're listening, obviously. They're working together, trying to find the answers in their groups. Okay, so in the tree, fishing, 3 in black. Okay, now we want them to work together again to have them rewrite the questions. Okay, again, working together, no stress. They can collaborate. They can learn from each other. They can help each other. Again, good for self-confidence. They get to try as many times together before they get to the hold on one sec. Before they get to the exam. Will they do this without the picture? Yes, the idea is you show the picture for 10 seconds and then you take it away. So they can do this part with the picture because there's no words involved, and if it helps them write the sentences then or the questions, then that's fine. So can anybody tell me what the question was for in the tree? Where was the cat? Okay, fishing. More complicated. What's the girl in the purple coat doing? Great. And 3. How many houses are there? Yeah, great. Yeah. So you get the idea. The idea is they can obviously use the photo or the image at this point for a prompt. That's not important. The point is not to test them at this point on their memory. It's to help them put the sentences together, because this is basically what's going to happen to them as well when they get to the test. They hear questions, they have to answer them, and so it just helps them sort of anticipate what kind of questions they'll get as well, and the language that they'll see or hear when they do the exam test qualification. Okay, Next stage, again with the same image. Look again. Try to remember some more details. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And again, in their same groups, they might have changed the secretary at this point, so everybody gets writing practice. I'm going to read some sentences, and you're going to complete them. So, a girl is playing with a yellow boat. The boy has got a red and white car or hat. That's right. The boy's got a red and white hat. And then third, the biggest dog is black and the smallest dog is brown. Excellent. Okay. Again, we can bring the image back up. And now we have them work together to rewrite the sentence, which really mimics, again, the language that they'll meet in the test itself. So we're working on their memory. We're consolidating the vocabulary. We are having them work together, so there's less stress, no pressure. So it's collaborative. And they're doing what needs to be done. They're answering questions, they're creating questions, they're writing full sentences. And it's sort of becoming, it's a good way of sort of having it become automatic for them. One more activity you can do with this, just with this part of the practice test, is a running dictation. I realize it's a little bit more complicated online. You can put them in rooms. Obviously, they're not running, but have them come into the room just to rather than running up to a wall, have them come back in and out of the room to get reminders of the sentence. So it is possible. Otherwise, it's something you can do when we get to when we're in in-person classes, either if you have room in your classroom or perhaps an outside activity or during recess, etc. A running dictation is basically you would take the sentences from the book here. You might want to add a few more to have like 6 or 7 sentences. Write on little pieces of paper. The smallest dog is brown and the biggest dog is blank. A girl is playing with a yellow blank. What's the girl in the purple coat doing, etc. And you might find a few other examples from the image. Pieces of paper, put them on the opposite wall, for example, and put them into teams of 2 with a secretary and a messenger. If you've got a couple sentences, you can switch the roles so they both do both parts of the exercise. So the secretary stays, the messenger runs to the board to read the question and has to run back and try to remember the question or the sentence and dictate it to the secretary. Need to do this as many times as possible as it takes to get the sentence or the question correct, and then they work together to answer it. So I suppose if you're doing this online, you could have one person set up rooms, have one person come into the room. You could have the question up on the screen, and then they leave the room and try to remember the question or the sentence. Any questions about that? It's hard for us to do now. I won't do it, but it's just an idea. So we've looked at remember the question, remember the sentence, running dictation. So this is 4 different activities on just one part of the practice test. What language did we use or are we using to do this particular activity? I'll start. Activities at the park. What else? Sort of language are we using? Yep. Colors, pets, clothes. That's right. Present tenses. Yeah, there's quite a bit going on in this picture. It's quite rich language-wise. We've got activities at the park, colors, numbers, nouns, comparatives and superlatives, recognizing present actions, present continuous. So there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot to exploit and to work with here. There. So before we get to that part of the exam practice, or the practice exam in the book, this is from the unit material. The first page is the vocabulary. So here we see the verbs, the actions that we saw, some of the actions that we saw in the image. And we also see down below colors and items of clothing. So these things, you can teach the vocabulary like you might do with any other time. Flashcards, miming, chants, or I always like to put things up on the board and then cover one up, have them close their eyes, cover it up, and then they find the one that's missing, and auction, any sort of activities that you would use to teach vocabulary, or to consolidate vocabulary, rather, because, like, again, we sort of assume that they've seen a lot of these words. And then we go into reading and speaking in the book. So basically, this is the thing that you can have them do in pairs. They identify who's skipping. So if we say they're skipping, we would say number 3 and number 10. And this is something they can work out in pairs, obviously. And then they can do it themselves. They can play the game, and they can choose to be somebody and have their partner guess who they are. So the example given is, I'm hopping. Are you number 5? No. I'm carrying I'm carrying a car. I think you're number 9. So if I say to you, I'm fishing, you might say, are you wearing a red shirt? And I would say, no, I'm wearing a purple shirt and blue pants. And then you would say, you are number 6. So within the material, the course book material, you've got little activities like that as well. Excuse me. So now we're going to move on to the listening part. This is similar to the way it used to be before the 2018 exams, but it's been made a little bit more realistic, more closer to home, I suppose, for the kids, and is still a matching task. For pupils to be successful at this part of the test, listening, they need to understand the instructions. They need to understand who the people are, be able to predict answers, obviously have knowledge of the vocabulary, and be able to pay attention to write the correct letter to the corresponding image. So ways we can do this, if we're going to focus on understanding the instructions and understanding who the people are, is to have them really pay attention to what is written. Here are 3 different instructions for the same part of the test, listening part 3. What do these 3 things have in common? These 3 little texts have in common? What do they all do? Oops. Sorry about that. They're all about family and friends. They're all about somebody telling someone something, and it's all then what did they do? What did they buy? Where did they go? So good way to do to work on this with your pupils is to make real life connections. first by perhaps you're giving an example, the students or the pupils doing an example, and then applying it to the practice test. So here, for example, this would be my personal example. We have a picture of me pre-COVID. Sorry, let me read up. Describing an action and asking about it. Yeah. So here's a picture of me pre-COVID and my two daughters, Adele and Eleanor, and then 3 pictures to the right of what would have been a likely activity for us to have participated in at the weekend. So based on what you know about our ages and where we're more likely to go, what do you think Eleanor did this weekend? Did she go to the pub? Did she go to a birthday party? Or did she take a nap? Adele, what do you think Adele would have done this weekend? She took a nap after the pub, that's right. Yeah. Okay, so obviously this is easy for you to imagine, but for kids, it's sort of like critical thinking for children, getting them to think about members of their family, getting them to think and make connections between people's ages and what they might do, which they might not be used to doing. And again, it's going to recreate what they actually do in the exam later on. So yeah, I actually none of these things happened this weekend, but they could have. One, obviously, bars are only open today, so I did not go to a pub this weekend, and unfortunately my youngest has not taken a nap since 2017, so that unfortunately didn't happen either. Even though it'd be great from time to time. Okay, so that's just an example of what you can do with them. Then you turn it around and you can have them do it. So for example, give them a worksheet like this, have them draw 3 or 4 members of their family, give them little spots or little squares to fill in with where they went or what they did or what they bought or whatever that would mimic whatever they'd see in the practice or in the exam, and have them do it themselves. And then they can get into pairs and do it with their partner. So you might have a child who says, I think your brother went to the park. I think your mom went to the cinema, etc. It doesn't really matter if it's right or wrong. The idea is getting them used to making connections and thinking about which members of the family are likely to do this particular activity or that. So teacher example, pupil example, student example. And then obviously you do that with the exam itself. So we want them to be able to predict answers. So again, we're working on getting them thinking about it. And predicting answers. So here, again, you can do this in class. It doesn't matter if they're right. It's just a matter of getting them working on the vocabulary and thinking and trying to make those connections. So we have looked at remember the sentence, running dictation, making real life connections, and predicting answers. Are there any questions about that so far? No? Okay. So basically, that is the first exam. That is the movers. That is material from the movers. What we wanted them to do is to obviously prepare for the exam and also get themselves prepared, develop self-confidence to go into it thinking, knowing what they're doing, knowing what they're being asked to do, knowledge of the exam types, task types. Again, they've practiced so much, it's become routine. Yeah, I can explain the principle of running dictation now. So in a classroom or outside, for example, you take little pieces of paper and you would write a sentence or a question or an incomplete sentence, for example. for example, and you would tape it up or put it up on the board, and the pupils would be on the other side of the room. When you say go, the pupils run. One person from each team runs to the board to read the question or this incomplete sentence, goes back to their teammates to dictate what was written on the piece of paper. Okay, and they need to do that as many times as it takes to end up with a correct sentence or a correct question, correctly written question, and then they work together to either fill in the missing word or answer the question. Okay, so it gets them, it's an activity to get them moving, because we know kids like to move. It also gets them working on their memory and then creating this. They work together to create the sentence. Does that make sense, Arlette? Yes, okay. Again, if you were to do this online, you might put them into rooms. Obviously, it's not running, but you might put them into to breakout rooms, and then they come back into the room to get another glimpse of the sentence or the question that you're trying to get them to recreate. Okay, so in terms of supportive teacher strategies, how old and which classes are students taking the movers? Most commonly in France, and we're talking about France. I work for a French company. This is all a French specific webinar. Pupils take the pre-A1 starters. However, schools that have been doing this for a while, some of them more and more are moving on to the movers by CM2. So most common, starters in CM1, movers in CM. But we are more and more seeing people getting to the movers by CM2. Not very many people do the flyers. I would imagine, I would think that the least taken test is the flyers, often because by the time we, yeah, well, like I said, if there are schools that are international schools or bilingual schools and they have, you know, already a more ambitious English program in place, they may get to it. But the most common situation is that. But again, some schools have been doing this for several years. And the teachers themselves are used to teaching the exams and are rodés as well. So about the kids box, these, okay. Movers for CM2, CM, yeah, that's what happens the most often. But again, they're all different kinds of situations. But very few, a lot fewer schools do the flyers, because by the time we get to A2, a lot of times it's in the 5e or 4e, and then they end up taking the key exam. So supportive teacher strategies. Do we or don't we focus on clear meaning? Or do we focus on grammar? We do. We focus on clear meaning. We're focusing on the children's ability to communicate. Do we focus on accuracy? Shouldn't put spelling up there, because spelling is actually one of the criteria. Less grammar, it's more about communicative ability, but spelling is part of the criteria. We try not to use words such as test, mark, and grade. And obviously, we try to encourage children to learn from each other. Also making real life connections, scaffolding, breaking down task types so they build upon each other. And obviously supplementing course book material with exam preparation tasks. So you have the choice of what a lot of people do is do a general English course book, and then yes, yeah, this is the criteria that helps, because since there's no grades, obviously how well they do on how well they communicate, and how obviously in spelling, like I said, is for the young learners exams is important criteria. That is what's going to help indicate how many badges they get. We can also, as with any primary class, use movement and rhythm. The classroom presentation tool, which is what we're going to look at in a second. And you might consider awarding mini certificates, stamps, stickers, etc., to help encourage and motivate them. So I'm going to move on to now. Hold on. Yep, see. Give me one moment, please. Where is my... One moment. Trying to share my screen to get to my internet. Voila, here we go. So now we're going to look at the classroom presentation tool, which all of you are going to receive samples of for all 3 levels, starters, movers, and flyers. I've got them and can send them out right away. Okay, here we go. So this is what it looked like. You'll open an account on oxfordlearnersbookshelf.com. If you received things, if you attended the Oxford Day a couple weeks ago for another conference I was holding, you will have already opened an account and received codes for Bright Ideas, which I encourage you to check out. If you'd like to have a look at it, please let me know. I can happily send you samples of this course as well. We'll look at it if we have time. But you will be receiving starters, movers, and flyers. So if we look at starters, for example, it is the book on screen presentation of the course book. So as though they were holding the book in their hands. And it looks like this. You've got, it's interactive. So anytime there's audio, there's an icon, you click on it, you can focus in. This focus tool is quite cool. You can focus in on a specific activity and it automatically zooms. You can show the answers, reveal the answers. Sometimes, depending on the activity, you can reveal them one by one, like this. If there is audio, for example, here, you click on the and you've got the audio. You can slow it down, you can speed it up, you can repeat it. If you're doing it in class, you can have them record themselves and play it back to compare the pronunciation. Well, so this is what the starters looks like. Like I said, you've got the unit material, and then at the end of every unit, you go into practice tests. To look at a full unit. Again, you'll be getting these, so you can look at it in your own time. And again, practice test. What up? Are there any questions about Get Ready For? You can have a look at the flyers. Again, audio bar comes up. Again, you can, here you can reveal the answers. Oops. One by one. This little, you click on show answers, click on the eye, and you can reveal the answers one by one. So this is, again, an exam preparation book. So obviously has lots of language in it, but we assume they have much of the language needed. It's going to consolidate and use the language in the exam context. If you go to the end of each of the books, you'll have the word lists as well that they're supposed to know for each level. There's grammar review as well. Extra revision. Voilà. We've got a bit of time here. I will show you as well Bright Ideas. So Bright Ideas is a general English course book. Like I said, it has the young learner syllabus built into it, but also has extra exam practice at the end of both the student's book and the pupils book and the workbook. So this is the pupils book, and these are my favorite things at the moment. I love these. I love the colors. It's got a lot of CLIL, content, language, integrated learning. There's lots about math and science and colors and mixing with other school subjects. And the idea is that each unit starts with a big question, more critical thinking, 21st century skills, getting pupils to think about the world. And they spend the unit working through the question to come up with the answer. Again, click on focus, show answers, and we can bring them up one by one. And so, yeah, so like I said, at the end of these, for example, and again, if you'd like to receive samples of these, I can do that as well. If we go to the exam preparation part, you see it's here, it says pre-A1 starters. So levels 1 and 2, prepare for the starters. 3 and 4, prepare for the movers. 5 and 6, prepare for the flyers. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got a page per unit, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so you've got 9, 10 extra pages for exam preparation within this general course book. And you've got more in the workbooks. The workbooks, I think, are fantastic. The workbooks are in color. I think they're great. And you've got extra exam preparation here. So for each. And this is the workbook, not the pupils book. So this is extra separate material from what I just showed you for exam prep. If you've got a lot of, you've got more time, obviously, and if you're doing an English language lesson, I would recommend something like this. After a level or two of this, then moving on to something like Get Ready For, Fun For, to have more specific exam practice. But again, this is the workbook, which is very complete and has is in color, which is quite new. Do you have any questions about this or Get Ready For or anything at all? I am here. The online interactive book is available. How many copies can the teacher access for the classroom, please? Sarah, I'm not quite, how many hours of teaching are there? But it's considered to be about, like any exam book, it's for about an hour a week. These are two different books. We've looked at the Get Ready For Starters, Moves, and Flyers, and now we're on a general English course book. I will send you the Get Ready For samples automatically, and then you can ask me for the, no, start all 3 levels. The samples for Get Ready For, it will be all 3 levels. Starters, movers, and flyers. Please let me know if you, of course, yeah, there are books. Oops. It's a book. I can't see it because I've got a screen thing on, but it's an actual physical book. You don't need to have a computer. The audio for the student's book is downloadable. So you would just need to put the audio onto an MP3 player or whatever you use audio with, but you don't have to use the computer. The interactive books, these come with the teacher's book. So the teacher's books with the classroom presentation tool, I think around 95. I think, but that's the whole pack. If you buy students' books for your classes, I will give you the teacher's material, whether it be for Get Ready For, any book, really. If you buy a class set or books for your students from us, we provide you with the teacher's material. So which one would you recommend for CZM? It's hard to say because it really depends on what they've done beforehand, because if they haven't done any English or at this level of intensity, then it would be probably Get Ready For starters. It really depends on what they've done before. Like I said, CZM for kids who have started doing English in view of taking one of the exams or in a more ambitious program, CZM, they've often gotten to movers, which is A1. However, if your kids haven't done this, they probably wouldn't be there. We send the samples automatically. Again, I'll send you samples automatically of the Get Ready For. If you would like to receive samples of Bright Ideas or anything else, please ask me. If one school buys the teacher's pack, it's an account on Oxford Learners Bookshelf is personal. Obviously, you can share your login details, but they, at a certain point, the system will shut down because there'll be too many IP addresses. But technically, yes, that's not how they're intended. It's a personal account with a personal email address. If they've been working on Kids Box, then they might be ready for the Get Ready For sure, because again, it's a different thing. If they want them to take the exam, they've done the language practice, and now the Get Ready For is going to prepare them more for the exam. How much do the interactive books need a computer? Sorry, I'm going through all your questions now. I was thinking about the one you showed us on LB. For Bright Ideas, which level of Bright Ideas? Well, Bright Ideas is a primary book. If they've just started taking, Arlette, sorry, I'm speaking to you. If your CZM have not taken a lot of English beforehand, I would suggest you use a lower secondary method, such as Project Explore or English Plus. Again, get in touch if you'd like to see samples of those, because I can do that. I wouldn't recommend using a higher level of Bright Ideas with your CZM, because you've got in the primer book, it's intended for kids that are like 6 to 12, but the level obviously gets increasingly more difficult as well. So you might have somebody in CZM who still needs a pre-A1, A1 level, but the level 6 of that book is going to be closer to B1. So the level itself would be too high. Do any of you, all of you, get in touch. This is my job. Again, it's my mission to make sure that people know what books are out there. Obviously, we sell them to schools, but we also work with bookshops, so it's possible that you're already a customer. Any books purchased with us or from us, eventually we help out with the teacher's materials. So if you're buying from a local bookshop, get in touch, and I can find out if they're one of our customers, and I can provide you with extra materials. You're very welcome for all the information I've shared. I'm happy to do it. I've got a bit of a cold, so it sounds kind of funny in my head, so I hope I spoke clearly enough for you. We use Global English as class books. Do you think that is enough to prepare them? Again, there's language practice and there's exam practice. I know your school, and I assume at your school that I know your school. There's a higher level of English, but in terms of the child being prepared on a maturity level to go in and sit with a stranger and speak English, that's another thing. And that's one thing that the exam preparation books do, is they get them used to the format of the exam and what is expected of them. because obviously for children, it's a different, well, for children, for anybody, like I said, I'm not much of a test taker. I don't do very well when being evaluated. So there's the confidence issue as well. So global English is fine. Do you do any Jeannie, do you do any specific exam preparation or just global English? We are preparing those signed up for the exams specifically. Yeah, okay. So again, the important thing is that they've got, and that's what happens a lot as well, is you've got a language class, normal language class, and then the exam preparation is often a separate hour during the week. That happens a lot as well. But there can be a disconnect in between the language that they're doing in their normal English class and the exam prep, because it's obviously it's a much more ambitious level preparing for an exam than just an average sort of an average primary English class. We've got a question minutes. How much is the interactive book for movers? It's the same. It's around 95, I think. I can check, but that's the teacher's book, which I've got here somewhere. That's the teacher's book. In it, you've got a code, this card that gives you access to the classroom presentation tool. Do these books follow the program from Ministère de l'Éducation nationale? It goes above and beyond. The Éducation nationale is the Common European Framework. Like anything is based on the Common European Framework. So yes. Does that answer your question? Great. Now the main difference, I mean, obviously I'm very well aware that in the overwhelming majority of French schools, French publishers are used. We're specialized in this case, English publishers, but I can assure you I would not still be here if nobody bought them. They are purchased, they are used. And it is my mission to convert all of France to English publishers. Any other questions? If not, you can always get in touch. I'm happy to speak over the phone. I can give you my number here, 0613. You can give me a call, my email address, we can set up a Zoom. Anything is possible. Please do get in touch. And if you're, you know what you're using, get in touch for a quote as well. I'm happy to, I don't know if you're, I don't know who you're working with as a book supplier, but we'd be delighted to work with you. Anything else? Okay, just very quickly, whoever's asking me about CZM, I can send you codes for Project Explore and a couple other courses if you need more of a lower secondary course. The phone number is in the list here. Oh. Bing. There you go. I've already got the codes, so I can, I'll send them on this afternoon. In which case, at that point, reply to the email if you'd like to receive codes for Bright Ideas or family and friends. You're welcome. Or just mention it in your email, please. Write back, and I'll send it back. I'll send you the codes, and you'll use the codes on the same place, oxfordlearnersbookshelf.com. If you're interested in prices as well for any of these things, pop in an email, and I'm happy to pass them on. Okay. I think we've come to the end. I can stay here all day, but I imagine you have things to get on to. Thank you for joining us. I plan on doing more of these. I've also, if you please feel free to pass on my contact information to any of your colleagues. They're welcome as well to get in touch to request samples and talk about books. Yeah, thank you. I will try to take care of the cold. I'm happy to I'm happy to help anybody, obviously. So do pass on my contact deals to anybody, my contact details, or if to the person at your school who's responsible for ordering. I'm happy to get in touch, talk about terms and conditions. Happy Pub Day pretty soon. That's today, yeah. I will probably get to one relatively quickly. And I hope someday as well to perhaps come meet you in person. I've missed it terribly. I've been stuck in my office for the past year, and I hope very much to get back out on the road. Perhaps not quite as much as before, but a little bit to come see you all in person, because computers can't replace everything. Voilà. So thank you again. I look forward to hearing from you and working with you, and do not hesitate to get in touch. Bye. Up. Thank you. I am not based in Paris. I'm based in Lyon. Bye.